Myself Siddharth Chauhan. Welcome to Easy Medcam. Today's part of the video will be covering about the dural venous sinus. So the dural venous sinus uh, is nothing but a venous channel that is found between the endosteal and the meningeal layer of the dura mater. We know that the dura mater, which is the outermost layer covering of the brain, it's been divided or is splitting into the two parts, which are the endosteal and the meningeal layer. So in between these two layers, the dural venous sinuses are being formed. These sinuses will receive the blood from the internal aspect as well as the external aspect of the brain, and they receive the cerebrospinal fluid from the subarachnoid space. We know that the subarachnoid space, the cerebrospinal fluid is flowing there. These cerebrospinal fluid will leak or emptied into the dural venous sinus through the arachnoid granulation or the arachnoid villi. And these dural venous sinus, what all are flowing in the dural venous sinus, this is drained or the emptied into the internal jugular vein. So the dural venous sinus the dural venous sinus is being formed here. If this is the cerebral hemisphere, this is the falx cerebelli. The falx cerebelli, the superior surface of the falx cerebelli is having a dural venous sinus which is called the superior sagittal sinus. So this part of the sinus is the superior sagittal sinus, and the inferior portion of the falx cerebelli contains the inferior sagittal sinus. This superior sagittal sinus and the inferior sagittal sinus will be interconnected to each other with the help of the straight sinus, isn't it? So this is the superior sagittal sinus and this is the inferior sagittal sinus, and these two sinuses are being joined together or being interconnected together with the help of the straight sinus. And the place where all these sinuses are joining together, the place is called the confluences of the sinus. So this place where all the sinuses or all the dural venous sinuses are joining together or getting their origin from there, it is called the confluences of the sinus. From this confluences of the sinus, the in the transverse plane the section, the sinuses is flowing here, this is called the transverse sinus. So this is the transverse sinus. This transverse sinus will loop around this structure and will form a sigmoid sinus. After forming a sigmoid sinus, the internal jugular vein is being formed here. So this is first internal jugular vein and this is the second internal jugular vein. Okay, so in the whole we are having the 5 types of dural venous sinus, which are the superior sagittal sinus, inferior sagittal sinus, and the superior sagittal sinus and the inferior sagittal sinus will be joined together with the help of the straight sinus, and from the confluences of the sinus, the transverse sinus is being will get their origin, and the transverse sinus will loop around the structure of the tentorium sillae. It will form a sigmoid sinus. After the sigmoid sinus, the internal jugular vein is being formed there. So the dural venous sinus are nothing but it is a venous drainage found between the endosteal and the meningeal layer of the dura mater in the brain, and it will receive the blood from the internal as well as the external aspect of the brain and receives the cerebrospinal fluid and from the subarachnoid space via the arachnoid granulation or the arachnoid villi, and mainly emptied into the internal jugular vein. So this part, all the structures or all the drainage which is flowing in the dural venous sinus are finally emptied into the internal jugular vein. So that's all for this part of the video. We will be covering about the next topic of the brain in the next part of the video. So do like, share and subscribe my channel and press bell icon for more notification, and please guys do comments also. Thank you. Please like, share and subscribe Easy Medicam and press bell icon for more notification.